Hi, folks, and welcome to week 5 of our course. What I'm going to do is just take a minute to do a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at this week. So for Module 5 here, we are sort of back into our rhythm of discussion questions and chapters. The next big project we'll have is in week 7, and that's our final project. So for this week, we're going to be focusing on 3 chapters, 11, 12, and 13. And the big focus from those chapters are going to be looking at things like accounting cycles and looking at items like accounting systems and why why certain philosophies are followed versus other philosophies. There's many different ways to manage money, many different ways, and many different ways to mismanage money. So when school business professionals and school leaders decide to take an approach or adopt a philosophy around money management or fiscal management, need to make sure that A, we're being ethical about it, B, that it's sustainable, and C, that we kind of keep one eye over our shoulder for those things that we can't necessarily control that pop up and cause deficits and things like that. So that's where you find items like fund reserves, district fund reserves, and items like that is incredibly important. We'll also be looking at some investment strategy within schools, and generally speaking, you're going to see a lot of conservative investing. There are some horror stories within the readings that are going to raise an eyebrow, and if you were in that community or if you were an employee of that school or certainly a decision maker in that school and got some of your publicly funded revenue into some riskier investments and lost a lot of money, that would be very, very, very difficult to explain, especially to our kids. So we're looking at money management and what are some different techniques there, and what can we even do with it? And that's probably one of the bigger things as we relate it back to becoming a principal, becoming a superintendent, any type of school leader or district leader that is not a business professional. Be thinking about what is the value in me knowing where money can go. Well, there's a lot of value in that, because when you get into board meetings and when you have business managers giving reports and when you have community leaders giving reports and when you have public input sessions, and there's a lot of information flying left, right, and up and down, and being able to parse out some of that and understanding what a business manager is talking about when they're talking about, well, the district sold some bonds at X rate, or we don't have to levy the max this year on the community, which sounds really good, but it might have a really tepid effect. Or it could go the other way around too. So a lot of this is being able to separate fact from fiction, and when you're challenged on these things as a district or an educational leader, we're able to speak to them. So keep that in mind. And then the final piece, the final chapter here, we're looking at personnel management, and this wades very specifically into the role of an educational leader, a building leader. This is something with which I've got a lot of personal experience, having been a part of a $1 million cut in my school alone, to hiring folks seemingly left and right. It just depends on the year and the situation, and there's a lot of things that go into that. So talking about evaluation, thinking about things like tenure, if your state has a tenure system, thinking about the big decisions around those and the personnel cost and how do we watch out for that, and sort of wrestling with the argument of, is that a predictable cost? Is it not? We're looking at thinking about steps and lanes on contracts, and well, if this individual gets a master's degree and it earns all kinds of credits, and all of a sudden this $50,000 employee becomes a $110,000 employee, what happens if we see a trend of that? So some of that, we can predict. Some of it, a lot of it, we can't. But how does that weigh in on your decision? Are you not going to hire that person if they're the best for the job? And sometimes those tend to be maybe existential struggles, and sometimes it's we hire the best person for the job because we believe they're going to be the best for that child or for these children. So those are things to be thinking about and wrestle with, and some of these things wade into more ethical waters. And so it, like many talking points in education and decisions in education, it's not simple. They're broad topics of discussion. So I'm very interested to see how the questions shake out and the discussion shake out. So everybody have a great week, and communicate with me if you need anything. But other than that, have a great week.